They're interdimensional. They work with the aliens. Some people are saying they're a slave of the aliens, and they're here to help, or they're working with the aliens to help because they have these abilities to like hide from us, but they're super durable. So they're in conjunction. I don't know. They're interdimensional, whatever the fuck that means, and it's a lot more bizarre. That if you really look at the Bigfoot phenomenon, it is high strangeness. It's not an ape in the woods. It's high strangeness with people seeing an ape. Mm-hmm. That's what it is to me. It's not an ape walking in the woods. I think there's two things happening. To ignore the high strangeness part is a mistake, in my opinion. Over and out.
Whew. God, Josh, I'm so glad you got that out. The first podcast of the year.
I could have went 40 more minutes just to be clear, but I realized it was getting long, and I had to tone it back.
All right, you guys, we'll have part 2 at some point during 2021 of Bigfoot, and part 3 and part 4 and part 5. So stay tuned.
Don't worry.
But Matt, do you have something darker?
A little darker, yeah. So, going off of the Bigfoot thing, I thought being in Australia now, I would dive into the Australian version of the Bigfoot, which is known as the Yowie.
Yowie!
It's called by, I think the Aboriginals call him the hairy man.
Yeah, they do.
And then I think it's also known as the Yahoo as well. I saw that mentioned a couple of times.
What? That's bullshit.
Yahoos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They should sue Yahoo.
So anyway, as I was reading through a bunch of stories trying to find some interesting stuff, I noticed this interesting pattern of these things, and I think it's the same with Bigfoot as well, but they seem to be very interested in women and children for some reason. Which was like a really odd pattern that I found with these Yowies in particular.
Like their safety?
I don't know. I'm not sure what the deal is with that, but it could be that. I hope that's what it is. I hope it's not some weird, creepy thing that's going on. But anyway, so I picked up a couple of stories that kind of highlight a few similarities between Yowie and Bigfoot, and also this interesting, like I said, this interesting phenomena of them being really interested in women and children. So this first story I found, it was from 2019, and a woman by the name of Jackie Liversidge. And she lived with her son and niece in a farmhouse on this huge swath of property in northern Queensland, a place called Tarzali. And it looks like it's, I've never been there, but it looks like it's this huge, richly dense bushland area. Anyway, I guess their property kind of backed onto a big open, not open, but big forested area. Mm-hmm. So anyway, she says they apparently lived there for 11 months. And she said this was in 2016. Mm-hmm. And then after 11 months, they couldn't take this anymore, and they had to get the fuck out, pack it up and get the fuck out of there. So what happened? Here's what happened, guys.
What the fuck happened?
So she says they started seeing these things. So it started with, on one occasion, my niece moved in with me, and she saw a black silhouette figure standing at a bedroom window from the veranda. Mm. She was that terrified that she did not move or even yell out to me. She just froze. Mm. And then from then, Jackie would sit out on the veranda because she thought it was some guy like prowling around the house till 2 a.m. in the morning. And she had like a large piece of wood with a screw through it, she said, sticking on the other side, just like sitting there waiting for... Yeah, Jackie meant business, man.
That's a particular weapon.
Damn. Yeah. So then she says the first Yowie she saw in particular was this really tall, muscular, huge, throbbing... Oh, wait. That was from some fan fiction.
That's great. I was like, I was going to do it too. I didn't do it.
No, she says he was a tall, muscular, and shadowy with hollow eyes. Jackie said the creature gave off this strong, really bad negative feeling, and she and her son and niece, actually by the time they, just about the time they left the property, they started all sleeping in the same room together because they were just terrified. So these things are really, it doesn't go into a whole lot of like exactly what they were doing, but they obviously felt terrified enough to pack it in and just leave. So Jackie says... there were things that happened like this. It would just be this escalation of things. So she would be standing in a bathroom And after getting out of the shower, and she'd feel like she was being watched from the window. This
Creepy.
real, like, horrible foreboding feeling of being watched. And she would look through the window and she would see these 3 creatures sitting in the scrub just beyond her window and just standing there, silent and still, just watching through the window. Just really, really off-putting, right?
Well, can I stop you for a second? That's another thing that's common in a lot of Bigfoot sightings. They peer through a window, and they'll watch people watch TV a lot, too, which is a thing. They just love doing that, but they constantly are peering at people from like their gardens and shit.
Yeah,
like
but
that.
this is like she's in a vulnerable position. Like this is this is scary. This isn't like here's some trout for
Oh,
dinner.
yeah.
Right.
I'm not saying it's
You
not.
know, this is like, hey, you're taking a shower. I want to see.
Well, here's the interesting thing, and it was from a Yowie hunter and founder of the Australian Yowie Research. His name is Dean Harrison. So he ended up interviewing Jackie about the encounter, and he actually said that in many of the cases, he said that the Yowies are known to reveal themselves to single women with young children living in isolated rural areas. So that's where I was like, man, that's got a real creepy kind of sexual nature to the
Reveal
encounters,
himself?
which is-
Yeah, come on.
yeah, that's very
yeah, that's
upsetting.
what I mean. It's like a
No,
little disturbing.
Well, I don't know. I think it's the opposite. I want to make a joke about it being disturbing, but it's more like women and children probably have cleaner thoughts, probably aren't aggressive in any way, and they sense that, like, you know, I could probably show myself without any danger.
Yeah, but then what? But they're not doing
Yeah,
anything.
well, that
They're
was the
just
other thing I
standing
was
in
thinking.
the woods, being like, "Oh, she's gonna shower." You know, like that's like
Yeah, booby.
Yeah, yeah.
they're not like, "Can I help you with your groceries?" You know, it's not the same.
Yeah. I mean, from a human point of view, it is like super creepy, obviously. But maybe it is just that women and children are less likely to, you know, immediately attack or whatever if they see these things. Maybe they feel like they can approach without being, I don't know, shot at or whatever, or come at you with a piece of wood with a fucking screw hanging out of it. Anyway, so she goes on and says, names a couple of other interesting things that happened. So she says her oldest son was walking out of the bathroom one night and he heard a very loud demonic animal growl.
Uh-oh.
And he ran inside to say, "Mom, something's out there." And then she heard it too. Initially, she ignored it, just, you know, an animal or something, she was saying. But she had purchased this high-powered torch and sort of went outside and shot it into the field after hearing this, like, really unsettling noise. And she was just, like, blown away with what she saw. And she describes these things as pitch black, like really black fur, standing in the forest, hairy. She said about the size or bigger than a chimpanzee. And she said it looked like a monkey, but it was standing. You know, standing upright like a man. She said the creature's head was oblong and it had these glowing white eyes. She also said the head could turn around all the way around to keep an eye on her and her family as they were walking, which is really
That's
fucked
really
up.
creepy. But I've never even heard of black
That's high strangeness.
Bigfoots before. But maybe they're a different species of Bigfoot.
Like black face? This thing has
Yeah.
a black face?
No, they're all black.
Their fur, yeah, all their fur was completely black.
Oh, okay.
She said on numerous occasions she attempted to record video of the creatures, but whenever she pointed the camera at them, the screen would go blank and her camera shut down. Interesting high strangeness there. Like, obviously something otherworldly going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then she
I'm coming
said
around,
yeah. So she started to try and de-escalate the situation by offering treats to the Yowies. She said she would, you know, try and soften, what was happening here, because she was just getting a really bad feeling that this was heading to somewhere that was very unsafe for them, for her family. So she said she started leaving vegetables and meat out for the creatures on the edge of the forest.
Yeah.
But she said they would never take it. Instead, she said the Yowies began leaving things for her.
What?
So she said, yeah, at first it was just a few macadamia nuts. Delicious. But then they left her a dead rat in the same spot, apparently.
I'd rather eat
It's
a
an
dead
interesting
rat
mix.
than a macadamia nut. Macadamias are the dead rats of the nut world. I hate macadamia.
What?
Really?
You would eat
strong
a
opinion on it.
rat? Like a disgusting rat?
no,
Disagree.
I'd eat
Hard
cooked rat
disagree.
meat over a macadamia nut. Get that bullshit.
But that's kind of like what
Strong
that's kind of like what a cat does. Like a cat goes and like kills a mouse and like leaves it for you at your bedroom door, like as a prize. But you're like, oh, thanks.
Yeah,
I
it's
really
similar,
wanted
yeah.
that. That's really nice.
Yeah.
Love you, buddy. Yeah, you're right. That's kind of that
here's
feels
this-
very primitive to me, not like interdimensional, super smart healing Sasquatch.
It feels very, animalistic, doesn't it? Yeah. But here's a really interesting thing. So after the, nuts and the rats and all that sort of stuff, she said, then I found an unusual flower in perfect condition. A mix of pink and purple color, but it was metallic. It had this metallic sheen to it. She'd never seen before. She'd never, ever seen this flower before. She looked everywhere around the property and could not find any trace of where this plant came from. There's just she looked it up. She just said this thing doesn't exist, but here it is. I don't think she ever took a photo of it. I haven't seen a photo of it or whatever. But anyway, So this story came out, and then it went through a few different tabloid newspapers and stuff around Australia. But then she came out not long afterwards and said. There was one part, apparently, she was kind of hesitant to tell because, it kind of went a little bit far beyond these hairy creatures in the woods and was almost a little bit, creepy, supernatural.
Ooh,
So she
I love
says, I don't want the story to be mixed up. It wasn't just 3 yowies that she saw at a time. There was another creature with them. He was a strange-looking, smaller guy. And she described it as... there's these pictures on the internet. If you look up the words rake... and crawler. It's this, really freaky picture of this, thin-looking humanoid figure coming at a camera. It's a well-known like fake piece of internet fiction, like Slender Man. It's not real, but she said it had this look to it, very similar, like thin, bony, small little creature that was hanging around with him. But she said it was all black. It wasn't white. She said the cheekbones were sunken and hollow, but they never glowed. They were completely black. And it used to just squat and sit there and stare at us. She said, we can't believe we lived through it. So obviously she felt really, frightened by this thing. It was menacing, obviously.
Whoa, is it like
so,
an albino Sasquatch? Is it a gray alien without a spacesuit? Like, there's a bunch of different ways I could go with that. I've never heard of a rake. Sorry, go on.
Yeah. No, she was describing something that was completely different from these yowie, but it was
hanging out with them,
hanging around with them. Yeah,
weird. So maybe
Which was odd.
it's
Yeah.
another
That's cool.
like another alien situation, possibly.
could be interdimensional, something like that. So anyway, not long after that, 10, 11 months later, she just packed it in. She couldn't take it anymore. Left the property with her children. The next story popped up, and this one was kind of like a little funny, but also, pretty terrifying at the same time. Another woman, and she was about an hour north of this previous area in Queensland, and this was kind of a bit of an aggressive yowie encounter, where she was going for a hike up a place called Red Hill. She was walking up this hill. She was just by herself in the middle of this, national forest kind of thing. And as she was coming up the hill, she said she startled this thing. And she spotted this big hairy man. It suddenly stood up. And she initially thought, she surprised it. It just whirled around what the fuck? And at first she thought, what the hell is some guy out in the middle of summer, fucking hot Aussie summer, wearing a gorilla suit? What a moron. And then she looked closer, and it was no, this is not a gorilla. Oh, this is the best looking gorilla suit I've ever seen. And she described it as having this dark brown, almost red auburn hair all over its entire body. She said,
What was it doing, Matt? I'm sorry to pause you. What was it doing? I have a connection to the book there. Was it intensely focusing on something, or was it just focusing on the flower or something?
Oh, no, this thing she said it was sitting, it was kind of scrouched down in the tall grass. And then as she came around the corner of this track up the hill, she must have surprised it, and it just stood up suddenly.
Well, the reason why I bring it up is because apparently they know you're coming. The only time you can surprise a Squatch is if they're intensely focused on something. And
okay.
And that's why I was just curious if he was like really focusing on something. It's the only way that usually happens.
Maybe he was being a gentleman and he
No,
was
throughout the
standing up because
second
there was a lady walking by, you know?
Good day, lady.
Good day, ma'am. Well, he wasn't a gentleman. You'll soon see. But